Folks, tonight I want to take some time. May seem like I'm hitting you with a fire hose, okay, because there's been so much work that's gone into this, and it is so unusual. Alrighty, but just go with me. I'm going to go real slow this evening in my presentation. I'll make sure that everything's very clear. I'm going to go back and forth, like I said earlier, between the PowerPoint and the website because there's certain things I want you to see so you get a better grasp of it all. Now, I just got through redoing the website. It seems to be one of my favorite things to do lately, but I made it very, very simple. So you can just go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. You'll have perfect understanding, and if you elect to enroll, it shows you step by step what needs to be done. So on that note, Tony and I decided to call this presentation a time for a review because lots of people have been investing in lots of different ways, and we have several people on our call this evening that have been using robotic investors or other ways of their investing that they planned on to make their retirement system work for them. But the thing I wanted to show you this evening is just something like this. Are you really getting the most from your investment options? Now, a lot of people have themselves tied into long-term, very non-aggressive, slow-moving retirement systems. And what we're going to show you tonight is going to be so completely different from that. So I'm inviting you, first of all, to clear your minds out. Let things just present themselves in a way, because in some ways it's going to be kind of shocking. So just bear with me. First of all, the first thing I get to do is I get to make sure that my attorney is happy. So I have the disclaimer that he's asked me to read to everybody. SimTrade Pro Inc., its owners, employees, representatives are not investment advisors and are held harmless by investing results from group individual members. The provided options and results are for educational and individual elections to participate only. Any reports, whether live or simulated, cannot be considered absolutely correct as consideration of market, individual preferences, or actions can affect the baseline for comparisons. All reports are intended for gross comparisons. Any services provided to our members are completed by written or oral request, not done independently unless declared and contracted. Investment clubs, partnerships are created under the applicable rules established by the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, and support contracts for maintenance of the groups. While observations and options may be suggested, the decision of the group/individual members dictates their results. So the clarity to this, guys, is I'm not a financial advisor. That's not my job. It's not what I do. Okay? My job is to put together something that works. Now, my prior history, I was involved in taxes for 30 some odd years. In that frame, I developed strategies. And that's bled over into what we've created right here. So that's what I'm going to show you tonight is a strategy. Okay, so first of all, I want you to just allow yourself to take this on. Investing is the greatest way to secure your financial well-being and requires only a willingness to step up from the ordinary. Now, you may or may not be aware of this, okay? But while the rich seem to only get richer, which seems to be the call here in America, the poor and middle income masses are severely limited in options that create the greater returns. Now, this is intentional and under the disguise of protecting the masses. Thank Frank Dodd. It's actually competition by the reigning minority to keep the mechanisms of greater growth for themselves. The best of the best hedge funds can offer 30% plus, and you have to qualify to access them. Now, Tony touched on that just briefly during his part here. And so here's an example. Okay, in order to invest in better options, you must, and this is the SEC rules, guys. This is not mine, okay? Have a minimum of $1 million in assets, not including your residence, and make over $200,000 per year. Interestingly enough, in my recent work under the U.S. brokerage firms, which are still here for doing Forex work, you now have to have $2 million in order to get into their system to make it work as an individual. Okay, you have to comply with all the Frank Dodd rules, investing, so FIFO, first in, first out. Well, that kind of cuts out a lot of different investing options. It can include precious metals in your Forex investing. The leverage here in the U.S. is 20 to 1, while the rest of the world is 300 to 1, etc. So they've really throttled the ability for people in the United States to be able to access some of the greatest investment options that are out there. And it's really difficult to work within this frame that's been created. Now, there's security in doing this, and I'll show that to you in a moment. But there is a lot of limitations they've imposed. The other thing is, you cannot invest in using foreign banks. Now, the U.S. has been very successful in shutting those down. I'm sure that most of you are aware a few years ago when they managed to get themselves included and intruded into the Swiss banking system in order to find out who were the Americans that were using overseas accounts or offshore accounts. They are still managing to impose that. And we've been kind of watching, kind of like this veil of darkness that's going over the entire world to all the different banks, particularly those that are licensed, that are insured, that are dealing with large masses of money and people. They are now capitulating, simply giving in to the fact that the U.S. is saying you cannot work with U.S. citizens anymore. If you're not aware of that, you need to be aware of it, because that is something that we're running into. Okay, you cannot participate in hedge funds because they are passive investments, making them securities. Well, this is their loop around. If you don't have this kind of money to get into a passive investment, you're not going to get there. You're simply not going to be allowed to be in it. So this is what we ran into as we started looking around and say, okay, what are the possibilities? What can we do in order to get access to something that's really going to work? So we made a list of questions, okay? So how do ordinary investors get access to these investments? Okay, let me show you. These are the things that you have to do. Okay, number one, you have to find a source of high return rates that's willing to help. You're not going to find it in the U.S., okay? You're just not going to find it here. You have to find a way to get past the passive securities. Remember I showed you that loop just a moment ago? That's the passive securities. You have to create a mechanism to ensure active participation. Now, why is that important? I'm going to show it to you in a moment because it's something that absolutely has to be there. You have to find a way to include ordinary retirement vehicles. Now, some people can invest a vehicle at a time. We've managed to create a way all of your retirement vehicles can be included in one investment process. I'll show it to you in a minute. Accumulate enough funds to keep the mechanism functioning. Have the legal and accounting services to ensure compliance. Tony just talked about how transparent we are. I have a CPA that I worked with for a long, long time who I trust with my life. He's one of the top 10 ranked CPA firms in the world of bookkeeping, and particularly with QuickBooks. And he's got a real thriving practice. He's the one that does all the accounting. Okay, it's their firm that's providing us our statements, does the tax returns, moves the money. That's what they get to do. Okay, and I have all of the agreements that we're working with have all been drafted by attorneys. Okay, ensure the requirements for compliant meetings are met. Ensure that licensed brokers and banks only. We were working with one before who was using a bank in Nigeria, which is not licensed and not insured, and they don't have segregated accounts, so your money was just being dumped in a pool. Number 9, monitor and report the results continuously. That's one thing that we're really adamant about, is that everybody can see 24/7 what their investment's doing, and look for other higher return options. I'm always looking. I'm always vetting. I don't like to present anything that I feel like it really is a way that's going to work. It has to be a win-win all the way around, or I'm not interested in playing with it. So here's the good news, okay? It's already done. All of those questions and all of those issues that we just presented to you have all been handled. So you're not having to go out and reinvent the wheel here. Okay, so SimTrade Pro, we've managed to create the best way to access these kind of options and get around all the stoppages that are being imposed on the masses. Okay, and it's perfectly legal. The amount of time that I've spent researching and talking to attorneys, particularly hedge fund attorneys, and talking to the SEC to make sure that what we were putting together would be a viable option, that it would work, okay, is absolutely, completely legal the way we're doing this. And it only took, like I said, some investigations. And I have to admit, I got a support from our members that was amazing. They had some wonderful ideas and lots of willingness to keep looking to find the answers to all those questions. One thing you'll learn about me is I am really tenacious. If I've got something to research and work on, I will accomplish it. So first, we need to find a source for our investing. And this we did. We have a licensed broker in Australia called Think Huge. He has access to one of the best Forex traders on the market, today called Steady Capture. Now, this Steady Capture, the guy who's running it goes by the name of Jay, and we have an interview with him that was done by one of our most precious members of our group, Dr. Jason Gospodarek, which you're going to be hearing from him quite a bit later on in the future, did an interview. And it was phenomenal the way he explained how he does this. And I'm going to show it to you here in just a moment. So here, what I'm about to show you is a live 3.5-year result. This is still active. Now at the moment I'm just showing you a picture, but on the website we actually have that available. I'm going to show it to you here in just a moment. See, this is that same picture as you just saw, and right here is the live result. So you can click on that anytime you want. You'll be able to compare. And you'll notice that right now it's at 356.49, okay, versus 355, which we were at a moment ago. And in actuality, we're at 357.58 at the moment. So that's what this particular one is doing, which is really quite phenomenal. So on here you'll see we have a gain of 355.38%. This is a 3.5-year time frame, started on March 3rd of 2014, and as of the date of this particular graph, it ended September 27th of 2017. So approximately a month ago. During that time frame, the accumulated amount that it gained, like I said, was 355.38. So we wanted to break that down and see what it would do. Now, first of all, I have an invitation for you. Okay, this chart, and Jason did a phenomenal video to explain how this all works, how you can read FX book. It's also on that same website right there. I'm going to show it to you one more time. Okay. Here's that particular picture. Right there is this presentation. I highly recommend you listen to it. It is extremely well done, and he explains everything about this whole process that we're working with. So here is something for digging. Now, one of the things you need to be aware of is he does what's called a high water management fees. What that means is if they don't make a profit on what we're doing here, you don't get charged. You don't get charged. But one thing you may not have noticed on that previous screen, and I'll show it to you one more time right here, there is no dips. Okay? This is why it's called Steady Capture. It has been consistently always growing and always seems to be doing extremely well. So that 35% management fees, which is 30% that is paid to the trader himself because it's not robotic, and 5% that we get in order to support the groups that are being created. Okay? And so here's the net results. So we have 355 less 35%, that comes out to 230.75% in the net gain. The number of months is 43 that this has been running at. The average monthly gain is 5.37, not annual, monthly, with an annual of 64.4%. Guys, that's live readings. That's not any kind of a mock-up. That is not simulated. That is a live actual account. And you're going to be able to access that on our website anytime. It's open all the time. And we have the same feeding service for everybody who's participating with us. So you can always see, you can always measure, you'll always know where you're at. Okay, so the source for investing is in place. No question there, we've got this one. So the mechanism to make this thing work was to create investment clubs. Now, here's how they work. Okay, first of all, it consists of a group of investors working together. You work together, all right? And you must have regular meetings. Ours meet every quarter. You must be actively participating, which means you're going to attend the meeting. If you can't attend the meeting, it's recorded, and you simply watch the recording and then send a note saying you did attend it. Okay? Must keep records of the meetings, which is what we take care of. Passive members. Passive members are those who fail to participate for a 1-year time frame. They have to be dismissed from the group because that makes it a passive investment, which makes it a security, and nobody can qualify for it. So that is the catcher to the investment clubs. Now, my job is to make sure that everybody participates, and we've got a unique system for making that work. The selection of investments can be presented by a managing member, but the group must decide on all actions. Now, I'm not the only one bringing things to the table. We have people in other groups that have brought up other types of investments, and the group investigates it, and the group decides what is it they want to do. Now, the creation of the clubs is managed by SimTrade Pro. Notice that is the creation of the clubs that are managed. Alrighty. We don't manage the decisions. That's the group. Now I can present to you what we have access to at the moment, which is working extremely well, obviously, at 355% in a 3-year time or 3.5-year time frame. Okay. But the choice is up to you, whether you want to participate or what you want to do. Entirely up to you. And each club must have a minimum of 10 to a maximum of 20. Now, we've experimented with more. I had one club that we did had 98 participants. You know, besides the fact that I'm trying to herd cats, the other part was the tax return was 558 pages long. And we just learned smaller groups work much better. It's easier to get comments in. It's easier to get clarity in what you want to accomplish than it is to have large groups. So a small group, a minimum of 10, a maximum of 20. Funding. Now this is where it gets really interesting because a lot of research went into this one to figure it out. So because of the nature of investment clubs, certain self-directed retirement accounts, and I'm going to show you those to you. A Roth, an IRA, a 401k, a SEP, this is something for business owners, a simple business owner for employee services, an HSA, a health savings account, and a CRUT, which is a charitable remainder unit trust. These are self-directed retirement accounts. Now, an HSA isn't considered to be a retirement account unless you don't use the money. It just simply becomes another IRA. I've got people with much as $50,000 in an HSA. It's just simply another IRA. Now, what's unique is you can put any and or all of your retirement accounts in this one event if you would like to. Now, you will have to go through a hosting service or somebody else that's going to be making it into a self-directed retirement account. You can move from your current accounts that you have. There's processes for getting it done, for transferring it over. You can create your own with the services that we work with. And this is where you start them at. Now, there's a lot of advantages to a Roth. I'm not going to go into great details about that right now. But the funds that go in there, the money's already, the seed money's already been taxed. So whatever grows inside that Roth is going to come out tax-free. So if you take a look at that, there's a limitation about how much you can put in each year depending upon your age. And it has to be sitting for 5 years without anything being taken out of it. And you have to be 59 and a half before you start drawing out of it. But the neat part is you put it in that Roth, you've already paid the taxes on the seed money, you let it grow with this kind of a percentage rate, and what are you going to get? I'm going to show that to you in a minute. And ordinary funds. Now, we've had a lot of people that come to us and say, well, I've got 200,000, 500,000, I want to invest. Okay. Well, we've got a couple different options on how that can work, but we've managed to put the two together. So one of the requirements that we do have to deal with is that we're going to give everybody an option right now, and Tony mentioned it earlier, to be able to get into what we're doing here with a minimum of $1,000 investment. That's only going to end in November. All right. But for now, we're allowing that to happen. The other part of it is we have a minimum of the pool. That's all the money put together. The agreement that I have in order to get the services that I work with through Think Huge, because they provide a lot of things for us without charging us. All right, is that I have to have a minimum of $250,000. Right now, that's easily beatable. We have way more than that that's involved in our groups at this point in time. But I have to have a minimum of $250,000 to start. So I need 10 people in a group and a minimum of $250,000. Now, for some people, it might sound like that's impossible. It's not. When you start looking at those retirement accounts, there can be some pretty massive amounts that are in there. So when we pool them all together, the advantage of having it pooled is that we get exponential growth. More money makes more money. Just that simple. And this provides a good base for exponential growth and long-term results. This just simply works. It just simply works. Okay, so the types of investment options, we have two. Okay, we have what's called our long-term retirement account. Basically, it's composed of two tiers. Tier 1 is straight cash. This is ordinary money. It's subject to annual taxes on the gains. That's it. Tier 1 is simply money. Tier 2 is self-directed retirement accounts. So we can combine those into a singular pool. It's invested on a 10-year term, meaning the rules in the club specifically say we're going to go for 10 years. You have the option to renew that at the end of the 10-year time frame. It's entirely up to the group, whatever they would like to accomplish with it. There is a 2-year lockout. What that means is that for the first 2 years, these funds are inaccessible. We're going to develop and build a foundation, the base, so we give it a great big jump start in the value that it can accomplish. The other thing that we do with it is that there's an annual withdrawal or additions in January only. So for the first 2 years, you don't take anything out. You can put more in if you would like to contribute to your Roth more or anything else along that line. You can, but we only do it once a year, simply because the bookkeeping works out much easier for the CPA firm. The second one we have is what's called the short-term rapid pay account. And we title this Tier 3. Now, this is completely different than the long term. The long term is very protective. These are retirement accounts. We're not going to challenge those at all. This is somebody's great big chunk of money that they're lying on saying, I want this to be a portion of my retirement as part of my portfolio. I want it to be safe. That's where I want it. Okay? So that's where they put it, is in that long-term retirement account. Now the short-term, Tier 3, I call it disposable funds only, no retirement vehicles. Now I've got people with pretty substantial amounts of money. They hate it when I use the word disposable. Okay? But there's a lot of neat things that happens inside this particular retirement, this particular account that we have. Okay, first of all, the gains are swept every quarter, which means at the end of each quarter, just 2 weeks before, you're going to get a notice saying, okay, it's time for you to decide. What do you want to do? You'll see how much the gains were. You'll see what yours was, how much of it's yours, and what do you want to do? Because you have options. Okay, you can receive it from the investor. You can just take it back. Here's my gain. All right. The other one, you say, I'm just going to keep it in the account and let it grow. I like what's doing. I'm going to make my base higher now and just go from there. You can add more to it. Now, this last quarter, we ended up with another $70,000 that people brought in saying, I want in. So here's more. Okay. And the other part is, if you decide you want to get out, you can get out. That's the neat part about this particular club. Now you'll notice I say it's a club. It's still being treated as a club. You have meetings to attend every quarter. There's decisions to be made, not only individually, but as a club. And we record all of these meetings. And you have access to be able to see those anytime you want. And if you happen to miss one, you can listen to it or watch it later on and then send notice to it that you did attend it, so we keep the record straight. Now, which brokers and banks? Now, I told you a little while ago how America has been stretching its arms out and managing to stop American investors from going outside of the borders. Okay, so what we've decided to do is this. First of all, our long-term accounts are held in a U.S. bank for security reasons. If you had any idea of what the paperwork was to get that set up, and the fact that there's only 2 brokers left in the U.S. that'll deal in any kind of Forex market at all. And we were the first ones, and only because they got a call from Nick McDonald, who owns Think Huge, and says, hey, look at these guys. They're doing something. And so they looked at us and said, hey, this would work. This would work. So they opened the door for us, our groups, to be able to participate with a U.S. broker and a U.S. bank. That is massive. That is really, really big. You know, so the thing is, we have a minimum of $250,000 so we can take advantage of that 20-to-1 leverage. Now, the neat part is, with Steady Capture, it's not going to make any difference because it's already FIFO. And if whatever it isn't FIFO, they're going to regulate to make sure that it is FIFO so it will comply with the U.S. requirements. But because we have at least $250,000, that 20 to 1 leverage doesn't stop us from increasing our risk level. Now, I don't know if you noticed it or not on that previous page. This is a program that is running on that picture I showed you before. This is Steady Capture running at risk level 2. Essentially what it means is you're doubling your money very, very quickly. Now it can be increased to 2.5, still within the U.S. bank, because it's not going to be using gold and silver. Okay? But we also, on our Tier 3 group, chose to use Ireland. Now, why Ireland of all places? 2 reasons. One, Ireland still acknowledges U.S. citizens if they come in a corporate way, which is what we're doing. We have an entity that people are attaching themselves into, and it functions in this banking system. So we're okay there. And the other thing is that Ireland, this particular bank, in fact, is huge. It's licensed, it's insured, it's got over $4 trillion in assets. Google goes there. I mean, there's a lot of big businesses that use Ireland. And so our short-term one, our Tier 3, is using Ireland. So the advantage to it is that we can still run Steady Capture, but we can run it at a higher risk level. And the other part of it is, as we have other traders begin to make themselves available. Now, we vet them hard. And you think I'm hard. Nick McDonald at Think Huge runs them for 1.5 years before he even considers adding them to his repertoire of investment strategies. So, yes, those are ridden really, really hard. But if they show themselves to work, even though they may not be FIFO, we can still use them in the Bank of Ireland. So our short-term option really has a lot of room to play. But remember, this is disposable incomes. The greater the risk, the greater the possibilities it could turn and go the other direction. All right? So, the other part of it, it can include precious metals, where we cannot in the U.S. include those on there. So, what are the possible returns specifically for you? Guys, I want to show you this spreadsheet. It is so freaking awesome. I've been playing around with things like this for years. I mean, in my tax practice, I did taxes for 30 some odd years using spreadsheets to help people project what their business are going to do and what they need to get done with them. And I've played with different types of investment possibilities. And I've been really careful about my calculations because I want them to be correct. Now, do I make mistakes? Sometimes. But in this particular one, I've had this reviewed by lots of different people. I've had it double check, triple check to make sure. So I'm going to show this to you. Now, the other part of it is I'm going to show you how to get access to it if you want to play with it yourself. So here, this is a spreadsheet that I created specifically for our Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 investors. I'm going to take a moment just to show you specifically how it works. First of all, you'll notice right here, Tier 1, Tier 2 return rate, 64%. Well, we already know that that's what we got off of those investments, off that live report coming off of Steady Capture. I also showed you that Tier 3, operating at 2.5%, is going to yield 85%. So that's those two options right there. Now, the other part of it is that Tier 1 cash investment in this particular scenario had $50,000 that they put in. They put $30,000 in on Tier 2, which is a retirement account, whether it's a Roth or IRA, whatever it was, okay? And they had $20,000 in disposable income that they decided they want to play with. So the total investment is $100,000. So we ran this on a 10-year time frame, and here's the results. That $50,000 at 64% for 10 years, the gross gains on it is $7 million, a little over $7 million, because it started out at $50,000, not 30, but 50, still running 64%. So the retirement account, which had $30,000, running for 10 years on 64%, yielded $4.2 million. Now, what's interesting is he only put $20,000 into Tier 3, and he only netted $170,000. And people say, well, why? How come it didn't go hog wild crazy? Well, I'll show you why. Over here in the far right, What this person did is every quarter they pulled out their gains. So every quarter he was pulling a check out for $4,250. So the original 20 grand stayed in there and did its job. And it kept making money. Now, I got to tell you, this isn't going to be true because the bigger the account gets, and we keep watching it get bigger all the time, we have more exponential growth, the higher the return rate becomes. But I'm just doing this on a base, core, straight system. That's it. So if you put in 20,000, it's going to yield 4,250 every quarter or 17,000 a year. All right. So the total that it pulled out of there was $170,000. But that was every quarter. And you still got your 20,000 available from the beginning. So yeah, that's what it yielded. So the overall gross gain was a little over 11 million. Now after you pay the 35%, remember it's 30% for the high water mark to the trader and 5% for us to keep the thing going because we have to pay all the legal and accounting and everything else that goes with it. You still end up netting $7.4 million in 10 years. So, this spreadsheet, guys, is available on our website. I'm going to show it to you real quickly. Under our tab that says investment clubs, right up here at the top, okay? And you'll see it right down here. I showed that same picture, so you've got it right there, alrighty? And then there's the link. So you can download that and play with it. Now I know some of you have got retirement accounts that aren't going anywhere or doing anything. Take a look at it. Just consider it because it's a distinct possibility of what it could accomplish for you versus the minimal amount that it's doing for you now. So how can you participate? Now this is the fun part, guys. Okay, first of all, you can go to the website. Obviously, www.simtradepro.com. Not too hard to get there. Okay, so you can view all the information there. Now, I just recently changed it so it flows very easily and very naturally. I want to show you this. When you come on to the first page, it's going to say home. And there's a short 3-minute video, which kind of details what I just shared with you in regards to why the rich are doing so well and why the rest of us aren't. The next thing is this Get Started pages, which just kind of briefly explains who we are, what we're doing, okay? Then the next thing it's going to lead to is the Investment Club, which is going to give you all the details about how we work, all the different types of things that are there, all the things you're seeing presented right now. It's all there, okay? And all those links are available. Then the next thing you're going to do is you can click on the Forex Trading Explained, which is an awesome one right here. And in here, Jason Gospodarek, who is our guru for working with us on our Forex investments, has done a lot of work, and he's done this great interview with Steady Capture. I highly recommend you listen to it. You'll be amazed. This guy is a genius. He lives in Canada. He goes back and forth between that and the UK all the time. Done all kinds of investing for 30 some odd years. And it's his specific techniques, his expertise is why you see the type of responses and results from his work. He just does a good job, hence the name Steady Capture. The other thing I have on here is a really short interview that I did with Hal Rosen, the CPA firm we work with, about the advantages, the tax advantages of investing in the Forex versus anything else. Because 60% of the gains that we make on Forex is going to be taxed as long term, and 40% is going to be taxed as ordinary, versus what we were stuck with, particularly in doing stock markets on robotic system, where it was all short-term investments and it was all ordinary income. So it doesn't even matter how long those particular things are being held, because it's set up the way it is going to be the best tax advantage we can possibly come up with. And then finally is to join us, and on this page is where you're going to have all the things I told you about. Here's your forms that you'll need to download. And one of the first things you're going to do, I'm going to invite you to go down and join. Now, obviously, I'm already a member, but there'll be a place for you to join. You'll become a free member. Then download these 3 documents. This one is acknowledgement that you've decided to join. It gives you all of the things our attorney wants you to know. This is the agreement for joining the newest club that's being created right now called Safe Investments. As soon as we hit the mark that we're looking for on this, we'll have a different one put in there. And then the option to join Tier 3 if that's what you would like to do. Okay, remember, Tier 3 only operates on a quarterly basis. You can only get in and out on a quarter. So, view the information that's there. I just showed it to you where it's all at. Join Us has those 3 forms. Okay, they're not that hard. You join as a free member. You'll do the investor disclosure. You'll complete the agreement and you'll wire your one-time membership fee of $3,000 to the account shown. That fee is what we use to populate and pay the required expenses for setting it up and carrying the whole thing forward for a full year. So all the accounting, all the legal, all of the maintenance stuff that we do on our end to set this thing up is being covered by that. You will never have another out-of-pocket expense. Now that's different than those of us who experience using software for robotic investments or anything else where you have a time renewal that has to be done. You have the extra expenses of a VPS or your brokerage houses fees or whatever. You don't have that. That's not in here. Okay, now that's already covered in that 30% that they're taking out on their end and the bank fees, which are minimal. But that's all handled. So you just have a one-time expense of $3,000. Now, this can be worked through your IRA. And if you have questions on that, I'll be glad to go over the details for you so that you don't have to have this as a direct expense out of your pocket at the moment. It can come from your retirement account. Okay, you're also going to print at the moment our Safe Investment LLC operating agreement. You're going to sign up on that one. When you do that, if you're going to do any kind of your self-directed accounts, remember, those have to be hosted by a licensed service. We have one that we work with that we really enjoy a lot. I trust them a lot. Okay, so give me a call. I'll be glad to help you walk through that process and how to get it done. It does take time. So you can expect that we're going to have approximately 3 weeks from the time you initiate that to get through all of the steps to move your current retirement accounts into a self-directed if they're not already. Now, if you already have them in a self-directed account, we're working with those too. We can just simply direct it from wherever they've got it at into what we're doing here. But it does take time. So make sure you understand that. It takes a little bit of effort to make that thing happen. Okay, if you wish to join into Tier 3, okay, print that out, complete that one. Like I said, it's only if you intend to join it. Now, the other part of it is, since it's only done every quarter, you can wait. You got till the quarter. But the only thing I invite you to do is to make sure you do it before the last month of the quarter. Because getting all the paperwork done and the funding put in place does take time. So please don't go any further than 1 month before the end of the quarter. Okay, then you can fax and email me back all the signed documents. When I receive the wire on that $3,000, I know that it's you. We associate all of the forms back to that. And then lastly, we're going to give you a call. Right here, I told you prepare your self-directed things because it does take time. And you're going to wire your funds to the indications that are on the forms, and then finally you're going to wait for the announcement. Now, you'll be contacted quite regularly by email to say this is where we're at, this is what we're doing, and there will be a time that we'll have our first meeting. At the first meeting, we do an introductory. We make sure everybody understands the rules and regulations. We go over in detail the organizational form that we created that you've already signed to make sure everybody understands. This is not a passive investment. This requires your participation. It is the only way that you're going to be able to access these kind of gains is by doing it this way. Unless, of course, you're one of the rich. So on that note, folks, I'm going to actually, before we jump into the have questions here, I want to give you a couple pieces of information. You can feel free to contact me. My email is simtradepro@gmail.com. And you can call me at 541-329-2130. All of this information is on the Contact Us on our website as well. And be sure to visit our website, obviously, at SimTrade Pro.